Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Community Governance Review Steering Group. My name is Councillor Christine Bayliss, Chairman of this group. This meeting is being held remotely and is being live streamed via YouTube, and the recording of it will be made available afterwards on our website. Councillors are reminded to put their mobile phones on silent. Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Community Governance Review Steering Group. My name is Councillor Christine Bayliss, Chairman of this group. This meeting is being held. Sorry, I don't understand. I don't quite know what was going on there. I'll go back and say councillors are reminded to put their mobile phone on silent if they have one near them, and mute their microphone when not speaking, as this will reduce feedback and noise. Members of the steering group should leave their cameras on at all times so that participants and observers can see you. Other members present will be invited to turn their cameras off when they are invited to speak. Officers are requested to mute their microphones and turn off cameras when not speaking. I will first do a roll call to check all the members who are expected to attend are present. As I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm that you are connected. Councillor John Barnes.
Present.
Councillor Terry Byrne.
Present.
Councillor Jimmy Carroll. Councillor Jimmy Carroll.
I hope Jimmy's all right. He missed last night as well.
Councillor Polly Gray.
Present.
Councillor Lynn Langlands.
Present.
Councillor Paul Osborne.
Present.
Councillor Richard Thomas. And Councillor Richard Thomas. You're muted.
Sorry, present. I was muted. Sorry.
Councillor Hazel Timpey.
Present.
Right, advisory officers in attendance as follows: Malcolm Johnson, Chief Executive.
Present.
Linda Butcher, the Interim Parish Council Administrator.
Present.
Lisa Cooper, Democratic Services Manager.
Present.
So members are encouraged to make their comments succinct and pertinent to ensure the smooth running of the meeting. Those members who wish to speak, please indicate by typing your surname only in the chat facility. The chat facility is persistent in that it cannot be deleted. Any inappropriate use would be deemed as a potential code of conduct matter. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please type interject. At this stage, I should say that we have some non-steering group members who are present in the meeting, and as is normal practice, if you can note in the chat facility that you're present, then that can be added to the minutes of the meeting. I will ask members who have asked a question if they wish to come back after receiving a response. So there is no need to type your surname into the chat facility again. It is a requirement that all members will have read the paperwork published on the website. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting if you need to leave the room. Just remember to turn off your camera and microphones. Please be aware that there may be a time delay of around 5 seconds whilst a member appears on screen. So we go through, first of all, item number 1, apologies for absence. Lisa?
There's none received, Chairman, but I did have a missed call from Councillor Carroll earlier this morning, so maybe we'll note his apology. Just he couldn't get through to me.
Okay, thank you for that. Disclosure of interest. Does anyone have disclosure of interests that they want to make? Can you put your hand up?
Chair, does membership of D4B count in this? Is it necessary to disclose?
Lisa, do you,
No, I would say it's not relevant now.
it's not, yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Any other disclosures of interest? Okay, we'll move on to the minutes of the last meeting, 21st of January. Any matters arising from those minutes? Are we all happy with that?
Yeah, agree.
Yes, Chairman. Actually,
Yes.
could I just jog back to declarations of interest? I think probably I ought to declare that I'm the Vice Chairman of ESALC, because we will be in receipt of a sub from you, hopefully.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barnes. I sort of gather that there's no issues with the previous minutes, unless I get anybody now making a declaration. We will agree those minutes. Mr. Johnson, are there any matters arising that you are aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, Chairman, that are not covered by today's agenda.
Okay, can I just have a proposer and a seconder for that?
I propose.
Okay, so I've got Councillor Timpey proposing
Second.
and Councillor Byrne seconding. Thank you very much for that. Right, we move on to agenda item number 4, which is the community governance order. And on this, I'd like to ask Mr. Johnson to introduce this.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, it's a fairly simple and factual report, just to confirm that the community governance order was signed and delivered in accordance with the requirements of the relevant act. It will be, the relevant people have been notified, as the report says, and we are in the process of getting it available on our website. Normally, we would have it available for public inspection, but obviously with COVID restrictions at this moment in time, we can't do that, but it will be available on our website. So happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Any questions from the steering group? Okay. Lisa, do we need to note that report?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes, you can just note that, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, if we move on to agenda item number 5, which is the recruitment process for the permanent clerk. Linda, did you want to introduce this item?
Chairman, thank you. I don't think I can add very much really to the written report that I've circulated, but I'm very happy to take any questions.
Okay, do I have any, I'll take comments from the steering group first and then anyone else. Councillor Thomas, I think you wanted to speak to this, yes?
Yes, please. Yes. Can I just start by saying thank you very much for all the extremely thorough preparation that's gone into all these documents. I'd just like to ask a general question, which is, the new town clerk will also be the Section 151 officer. Because that is the case, does that mean that the person who is appointed has to have substantial local government experience and in particular meet criteria which are actually in the job descriptions, etc.? Please. What are the implications? In other words, that it has to be a Section 151. Does that mean that the person has to have substantial local government experience, particularly current local government experience?
That would be the preference, and the person specification that is included in this pack actually does refer to that. It's quite common for clerks and 151 officers to be the same person. That's not to say that in the future, when the council is doing more and undertaking more, it would not wish to split that post. But at the start, it's quite feasible for that one person to do both roles.
Okay, I'd like to make a general comment, and that is that one of the things about institutions is that they tend to become institutional. And when people thought about having a town council for Bexhill, I think one of the motive forces behind it was a desire to see a new kind of very creative and very innovative organisation. Now, I'm wondering whether the job specification, everything about it, couldn't in some ways reflect that. In other words, to actually say we're looking for somebody who's had experience of creativity, experience of innovation, experience of digital transformation, experience of new ways of working with community organisations. In other words, to try to shift the balance a little bit from having had experience of doing the job already to having a new type of skill, a new type of approach, which might fit in with a more innovative way of actually carrying out local government. And I'm wondering where that, because you see, it strikes me there might be some extremely good candidates who might be working for voluntary organisations, NGOs, all kinds of organisations who might be to bring a certain freshness to the job. They would obviously have to learn all the skills, they'd have to get all the knowledge about how local authorities work. That would be essential. But I'm just wondering where there may not be some people who would be a breath of fresh air who I wouldn't want to see excluded. Okay, so that's just a contribution to discussing this topic in general.
Right, thank you for that, Councillor Thomas. That's actually quite an interesting point that you've made there, because one of the sort of discussions I've been having is around about the qualification of the person. And Linda, I don't know if you want to come back on that, and just to remind members of the steering group about the power of competence and some of the things that we put in the budget.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. When the last meeting that we had here, which was when the budget was discussed, Robin Venard and I put forward a proposed budget for you to consider, and you actually increased it. And I think I commented at the time, it's the first time I've been to a meeting where councillors have actually upped a budget and not tried to cut it, which is absolutely fine. But one of the things that you did increase it by was £10,000 for COVID. When the new parish council is created and able to spend that money, providing enough councillors, and that would be 2/3, have actually stood for election, you would be able to spend that money providing you had a qualified clerk.
That's the problem.
Now, I'm going to be doing that job right at the very beginning until you appoint, or until the council appoints a real clerk, and I am qualified. So you could spend that money. If, however, when the appointment is made for the permanent clerk, that clerk is not qualified at the time, then they need to obtain that qualification within 12 months to enable you to continue spending that money.
Right, okay. I just think that's a really important fact. Although I don't disagree, Richard, with I think your sentiments. And right, I've got Councillor Barnes next.
Yes, I mean, to echo your words, but it is quite important. You have two sorts of grants you can give as a parish council or town council, and one set you don't require a general competence. But if you really want to spend money, general competence is absolutely essential, and you need that power. Quietly to Richard, I think don't run before you can walk is important. The other thing I would say is, in my experience, you mustn't think that because people are parish clerks that they're not innovative or that they're somehow stodgy people. There are an awful lot of innovative clerks around. We have 102 parish councils in East Sussex alone, and some of us have actually got on a bit. You will find we spend more than any other parish in Etchingham. We have brand new village halls. All kinds of innovations have taken place. So the notion really that somehow parish councils are stick in the mud unless somebody new totally comes in, I think deserves to be reprobated. I have one problem with what's in front of us. At least it's not a problem, but it is a genuine worry. We're advertising, I think the SALC website is still up and running, but SALC is breaking up. And I don't know if Linda's fully aware of that. So it probably means we ought to advertise on the eSALC website and possibly the West SALC website if they are up and running and SALC is down. So we just need to slightly tweak the recommendation to make sure it's on the available website, whatever it is.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Barnes. And Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Christine. I've got two points. One is just a technical question, but as Richard has raised the various points that he just raised, I very much agree that we need to look for those qualities. But as Councillor Barnes has said, we can't run before we can walk, and we do need someone who is, I would say, someone who is so well versed in local government that they have the ability to think wider, that the technicalities have almost become second nature. They're competent and happy with all the levers and controls at their disposal. And in the interview process, I agree, we should really look for those people who are seeing the new normal, as we're calling it, as a real challenge, especially, as you say, working with voluntary groups, because since we're doing remote meetings and since the sort of digital revolution, the amount of connection you can have, first of all, the amount of connection that voluntary groups have with their own members and with each other, that then should carry forward to the focus of the town council. So I think it's very important to have those points sort of front and centre at the interview process. My slightly technical point, are we expecting the applicants to come via, are we expecting applicants to come via agencies or to come in person? Send their CVs in person, because it makes slight difference to the way we advertise, I think. Malcolm was probably more well versed in how people at that level, whether they apply in person or whether they just register that they might be up for a move with the various agencies and headhunting agencies. So I'd just be interested in a view on that.
Yes,
Thank
you. Yeah, Councillor Byrne, I'll bring Linda or Malcolm in a moment, just to say that, of course, we will not be doing any of the interviewing. And just to remind you that this is all set up.
Absolutely.
So that actually Linda will be sort of running this process. Linda, did you want to come in next?
Yes, certainly. Yes, the as the report says, the East Sussex, West Sussex, South, because they will be split, but there will be websites up and running from the 1st of April. I had a chat yesterday with Trevor about that. The Society of Local Council Clerks, the National Association of Local Councils. So the advertisement can go on all of those sites. That's not a problem. They will then apply for a recruitment package, which will include, obviously, the job description, the person specification, a bit more about Bexhill, which I've still to write, actually, and I may look to some of you to assist me with that so that we can sell the place itself. We don't need to sell it to people that are local, but we need to sell it to people that perhaps don't know Bexhill. And there will be a strict application form, which they will be asked to complete. That application form goes into about 5 pages, I think, plus they can add their own page about themselves if they wish to. And from that, then when they come in, obviously the new council will be in a position to shortlist and also interview. We always do pre-prepared questions for members to ask the applicants when they come for interview, and to demonstrate the sorts of projects that they've been involved in previously, so that we can actually check up on these things and just see how innovative they have been in their past posts, whether they're coming from the local government world, town council, or a principal authority, or whatever their background is.
Okay, Malcolm, did you want to add anything further, or you?
No, I think Linda's described it well, so happy with that, Chairman.
Okay, Councillor Barnes, you got any further comments?
No, I think that's fine. I assume that as well as the pack, I mean, in industry in general, if you're thinking of moving, you have your CV. You maybe have 2 or 3 CVs angled at different areas, and you send that off. But if we're doing it via our own form and own application form, the only caveat is we mustn't make it so limiting that we miss any experience. But then I'm sure that's going to come out in the interview procedure anyway. So my real question was, it was making sure we don't incur, or where possible, we don't incur employment agency fees. Having run an employment agency, I would like to see us, first of all, looking at the people who've got the initiative to apply off their own bat rather than go via headhunting firms and agencies.
Yeah,
Okay,
we
thank you.
we
Thank you
tend
very much.
not to use agencies.
Right, I've got Councillor Osborne next, then Councillor Langlands, and then Councillor Barnes again. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, to a degree, I've got some sympathy with what Richard was saying there. You know, you sort of, is it almost sort of a blinkered approach where the job is specifically for sort of clerks going up a scale, if you like. So I can see where he's coming from, but equally saying that, you know, in the years I've been connected with parish councils and town councils, you know, we had a clerk in Canberra a few years ago, a reasonably young clerk who turned up at Canberra, did all her work, got all her qualifications, and then a plum job came in Folkestone, newly formed town council in Folkestone, and off she went with her new qualifications and got a good job over there, very good job, at the time, 50,000 a year. So so from a parish clerk to a large town clerk, you know, she moved on, and as I understand, she's still there. We had a similar issue in Rye when I was mayor. Our clerk, Richard, sort of was looking. There was a job came up in Seaford, I think it was, and he sort of looked there. So we had to sort of tie him down a bit and pay him a bit more money to keep hold of him. So yeah, I see where Richard's coming from, but equally, you know, parish clerks sort of, you can almost see it if someone's keen, you know, they can get their qualifications, and then, you know, as they get that, then they think, yeah, this is for me. And they see a job like Bexhill Town Council come up, yeah, it's a plum job to go for. So I wouldn't think you would be restricted in the quality of applicants, to be honest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Mr. Johnson, do you want to come in now?
Yes, Chairman, thanks. I was only just going to make the point, just to remind members, it is a statutory post with requirements for the role, and I think the town council, when it interviews people, as I said, I don't think we'll be short of applicants. You know, we'll no doubt look at the sort of criteria that they want to have for the role and the person they want to have the role, but there is a basic skill set and a basic level of knowledge that is required if it wants to do anything and be an effective town council. So I think, you know, the job, the bits around the individual are the skills of the interviewing panel and making sure they match those, you know, those skill sets that they've got in appointing the right person. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. Right, I've got Councillor Langlands next.
Thank you, Chair. Mine's really just a comment with regards to the advertisement. I mean, we've talked about what we want in innovation and, you know, for our clerk and that sort of thing. But I'm not sure that our advert reflects that. I mean, the heading, "Are you looking for a challenge?" could actually be quite daunting. I think an exciting challenge. I think sometimes the way we're using the advert is not quite, you know, oh, let's put you all off. Are you up to the challenge of providing this new council with expertise? Couldn't we sort of write something like, do you have the motivation, experience and innovative skills to provide this new council? Just a slight change, because it will indicate what the council are looking for and how exciting it is going forward. It's just an observation about perhaps some of the phrasing of the thing, just to inspire and get people to think what we really want in Bexhill, you know, and I'm sure that's what the new council will want.
Yes, thank you for that, Councillor Langlands. Councillor Timpey.
Yeah, I totally agree with Councillor Langlands. I was going to actually make the same comment, Lynn. Yeah, this is an exciting opportunity, and I'm not sure we're reflecting it as such. But I did have a question about the qualifications. Is it the norm that they don't have a financial qualification? Because there's an awful lot of responsibility, isn't there? I'm just curious about that.
Linda, would you like me to answer?
Yes.
Yeah, I think what a lot of people don't perhaps understand about a 151 officer, local government uses SITFA qualifications, which are different from normal outside accountants qualifications. And most people that are in local government understand that. And therefore, you don't need to have a SITFA qualification to actually be a town clerk, but it's useful to understand the principles of local government accounting as opposed to normal accounting. And though all of those things can be learnt, but if somebody has already got that experience in the past, then obviously it's going to be helpful.
Yeah, thank you, Linda. I'm just concerned that whoever achieves this role, they really need to hit the ground running. And I'm just a bit worried that they'd have time to do this studying for these qualifications, as well as handling all the important things that need to take place in the first year. That's just an observation.
Okay.
Right. Councillor Barnes, you wanted to come back to me.
Yes, actually, some reassurance. We were simply looking at somebody yesterday for ESALC, and some of the existing clerks or assistant clerks really have quite high power backgrounds. We were looking at somebody who in the end we didn't appoint, who had actually got financial expertise in United Arab Emirates. I am, though, rather with Councillor Timpey. I'm not sure we lay quite sufficient stress in the advertisement on financial skills, because that is really an area. You are the RFO. You actually do need, I think, to have a fair understanding of accounts. What also, I go somewhere with Richard Thomas, it would be an interesting challenge for somebody with good managerial experience or good civil service experience to learn the job quickly. But you might want to just look in Bexhill and find a way of reaching out to the population of Bexhill to see if anybody there has so much experience in other things that they might actually still be a plus. But it's a difficult one, because it would be quite a steep learning curve, I think.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Barnes. I've got Councillor Byrne again.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just thinking of the usual. If you're thinking of doing something new in industry, the most dangerous thing you can do is try and sell new products to new customers. And this is, do we want a new town clerk, someone who's only just stepped up, to a new town council? I think that would be dangerous. I can imagine any town council with which Councillor Barnes is associated is a mature town council, can really afford to look outside, can afford to look for maybe the slightly wild card in whom they see potential. But I think if we're looking at someone to act as a clerk to a new town council, we really do need to put quite a bit of emphasis on previous track record and previous experience, whilst also, and you know, Councillor Thomas has raised these points absolutely excellently. I think we all agree, whilst also not wasting the opportunity to go for somebody who's got innovation and modern ideas and really wants to rise to a new challenge. So it's just, let's not have a new town clerk and a new town council in the same place at the same time.
Okay, I've got Malcolm Johnson wants to interject.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I mean, not wishing to sort of cut across members' conversations, but must stress that it will be the town council who will appoint the town clerk. And although the observations from members are helpful and useful, ultimately it will be the town clerk's responsibility. And what we need to do is to provide them with a field of people that they can choose from, and that's the process that we're going through now. So just wanted to make that point, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. We mustn't lose sight of that. Councillor Thomas.
Just to say, the reason why I asked about the Section 151 was precisely because I thought there may be legal difficulties. So I wasn't surprised to find out that there are. But at the same time, I was going to make the same point that Malcolm has just made. It is a decision for the new town council. But what I would like to see is whether the job description and the associated documents could be slightly tweaked in line with the sort of thing that Councillor Langlands was saying, and in such a way that we don't exclude the possibility of somebody applying who's had substantial and successful managerial experience in the voluntary sector or in private enterprise, for that matter, that the new town council might want to consider. So I'm just suggesting a tweaking of the language, which would open up the field a bit, and which would at the same time meet the kind of suggestions made by Councillor Langlands that we want to suggest that we want somebody who's going to be sympathetic to an innovative and creative approach. Just can the language be tweaked to open it up a little bit, to open up the field, please?
Linda, I don't know if you want to respond to that, to say that you'll take on board the comments from councillors this morning.
Yes, certainly, Chairman. I've already written down on my notes here, are you looking for an exciting challenge? Because I think that probably explains it a little better and makes it look a bit more enthusiastic. And I will certainly go through the rest of the advertisement there and see if I can tweak it a little bit more so that it reflects comments that have been made this morning. I should actually say that this is a basic advert which has been used many times before. In various places across the country. Clerks very rarely reinvent the wheel.
Right. Thank you for that. Right, okay, now there's a on page 4 of our agenda, there is a sort of list of things that Linda would like us to sort of consider. Bearing in mind that the decisions around this will be taken by Linda in consultation with Malcolm Johnson, and I think myself as to sort of like sign off the final agreement. So I think we've considered the advert as set out. Have we got any views on the agree the level of advertising that's required? So you have got some costs associated on the first page, on page 3, around the adverts. Anybody got any views around that? Any strong views? No? And
I just wonder if, given Bexhill, do you want to do something around social media? That wouldn't cost you anything, but might actually catch people who are tech savvy, and that might be a rather good way of tapping into those people.
Linda, had you thought of doing anything around social media on this, working with our comms people?
Well, I did wonder whether or not Rother District Council would be prepared to put it on its website for us. I was also going to, through Trevor, go to the other principal councils and see if they would, and see whether or not there was a charge to actually do it. I did make inquiries with your local newspaper, and the cost of putting an advertisement in there, you know, a hard copy, if you like, in the paper and also on their website, uses up more than the entire budget for advertising.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I'll leave others to comment on that. Okay. So we've considered the job job description and the person specification with tweaks as we've discussed.
Yeah.
Are the I mean, as I understand it, Lisa, we're just going to note this and ask the chief executive and Linda to agree this going forward.
Yes, I would suggest that that's more than adequate. It's just to note, unless there's dissent from any members on any of those things, I wouldn't recommend that we need to take a recorded vote. So if everyone's happy, we can just move forward on that basis.
Can Malcolm just talk quickly about the finance point?
Thank you, Chairman. I was just going to I was trying to type in as just as you said, so thank you for that. Yeah, just for clarity on point D, Rother District Council will fund any costs you know, in advance of the town council receiving its precept, so that there's no problem with that.
Okay, lovely. So unless there's any dissent, then we move forward on that. I'm getting nods. Thank you. Right, so we move on to agenda item 6, which is the programme for communications. And what I thought was we would perhaps sort of move through the various different headings here. Linda, did you want to sort of just introduce the report, and then we, as I say, we'll go through the various different headings? You're muted.
I muted myself because the dog started grumbling. Yes, Chairman. It was my thought that we needed to have possibly a website set up sooner rather than later, and this was a way of creating it. Having said that, and spoken to you since, I'm very happy to put this on hold and then go through the process of tenders and quotes at the appropriate time when the new council is elected. But in the meantime, I think the urgent part of it is to secure a gov.uk website and email domain names for Bexhill Council. The company that I went to initially was quite happy for it to do it, and it would be Bexhill-on-Sea Parish Council, which could then be changed to Town Council if that's what the council decides at the annual statutory meeting in May, because at the moment we can assume it will do, but we don't necessarily know that that's the case. Having said that, I know that Malcolm has said that he thinks that the IT section at Rother would be able to secure those domain names for us.
Okay. Malcolm, did you have any comment on that?
Yeah, I can ask the question. Obviously, I haven't spoken to them yet about. We need to secure the domain names, and what we need to do is consider what domain names we need to and it will be is it bexhillonsea.gov, is it bexhill.gov, etc. But it may be that we need to secure a number, but I'll speak to IT on that one.
Okay, I've got Councillor Barnes wants to speak, but do you want to speak on the first item, which I wanted to just go through, which is the insurance? Or do you want to wait until we talk about the website?
I had a comment on the insurance.
Yeah.
Just say from my experience, limiting to those two companies is perfectly right, because you'll get a much more effective quote that way. Whereas on the website, and I was going to make the contrast you obviously already have, Chairman, I think there we need to look outside, because in some ways I would like to see us look inside East Sussex rather than outside East Sussex for a provider. On the domain name, Chairman, I would avoid putting parish council or town council into the domain name. I'd go for Bexhill or bexhillonsea.gov, but clearly Rother can procure that for you, and you don't really need an outside firm to do that.
Okay, thank you very much. On that, any more comments about the insurance? I mean, are we happy to recommend to Mr. Johnson and Linda that sort of quote from either of those two companies is in order? Bear in mind, we need to have insurance in place by the 1st of April. So it's it's not something that can be put off to the new town council to decide.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fine.
Happy
Yes.
with? Okay. Right. Let's talk now about the website and email. And we've all received a sort of communication from Mr. Izzard, and I think you could quite safely say that it's sort of got quite good support from a range of various different people across Bexhill and also across, I suspect, this group. I mean, is everyone happy with the idea that we completely put off getting a website up and running to town council? I had wondered whether we actually did want to, if we can get hold of the domain name, if it might be possible to put just a holding page up, which might have a link to, say, the job description, a link to the elections, a link to any sort of information that's coming up, maybe a link to our elections pages on the Rother District Council website with who's standing where. I mean, I sort of see that you wouldn't want to sort of get a final website until the town councillors are in place. But there may be an argument to get the domain name now and put something very, very simple up that enables people to use as a reference. And I just wonder if we could discuss that.
Chairman, Rother do provide a service to parish councils of putting up a website for them. Actually, I think they provide it free, if I remember rightly. What would be perfectly possible, I would have thought, is a very simple website. It would be useful, I think, to get something in place. You can always replace it with a more elaborate design. But one that simply explained there is going to be an election, there is going to be a council, and there will be a more elaborate website later, would, I think, be quite useful.
Yes, thank you. And I have to say, that's my own thoughts. Councillor Osborne.
Yeah, John almost took the words straight out of my mouth, to be honest, Chairman. Yeah, I think get a domain name up and running. and just get some sort of basic website that says simply that, you know, the town council will become, you know, a full entity on the 6th of May or very soon afterwards. Elections are coming, and some basic stuff, just, you know, rather than a blank page. You know, people will now start to sort of look it up. And if you've got some basic information, then that's all you need. That's all you can have, to be honest, because there's no one there to literally make the decisions. So I think a basic page to get it started with some pertinent dates, that's all you need.
Councillor Thomas.
Just going to say that I think that's a very good idea. What Councillor Barnes says is extremely interesting. If we can do it for other parishes, we can do it for this new parish. What I would like to say is it might be another opportunity to really emphasise the importance of being able to use a postal vote, because that may become very, very crucial. And so I think that should be added to the website. How to get a postal vote, maybe even a link to rather, so that you can register for a postal vote.
Okay. Any other comments? And Linda, I mean, what have you a response to the steering group?
No, I think that's a very good idea. But obviously it would need Malcolm and his team to obviously set all this up. So it's actually putting more work on to Malcolm and his team, but I'm very happy to work with them on this one.
Okay. Malcolm?
Yeah, just for clarity, we do provide a facility for parishes where they can, in effect, have a piece of our website to do their own. It is not the same as a full website in the traditional sense. So, but it is, you know, and it relies on them to populate it. We don't make a charge for it simply because the raising of the invoice would probably cost us more than it's actually costing us to host it. So we don't make a charge for it in that sense. So very happy to do that, you know, in addition as a period of time. I would, however, suggest that, you know, given the size of a Bexhill Town Council, it would probably want its own dedicated website and in due course.
Oh yes. Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Chair. Just if we're going to have an embryonic or sort of framework website initially, I think it's going to be important to have links on there to things that, because the people who are first of all going to be looking at it are the candidates who are wondering whether they should apply or not. So links to any if we already had our new corporate plan in place, I would want to see it there, but we haven't. But certainly links to maybe specific bits of our own website rather than just a general link. But just to consider that in general, consider the embryonic website is going to be Googled by anyone, any prospective candidate. So it's an opportunity for us to make sure they've read anything we really feel is good background information. Things like the public realm document, that sort of thing, gives a flavour.
Okay, thank you. Right, there's no further comments to be made on that. So I think that's our general advice to Linda and Malcolm, that we set up a holding site. We purchased the domain name. We sort out the fact that councillors, as soon as they're elected, could have email addresses. I think that's really important. And then we leave the actual formulation and design of a website to after the election, so that the town council can make decisions about that. Okay. Right, if we move on to
sorry, Chair, are we also authorising the setting up of the PO box address? There's a cost involved, isn't there?
Oh right, oh sorry.
Item D on page 12.
And I was going to move approval of the provisional calendar as well. If we can take all those decisions as yeses, that I think would probably help. And if you simply ask for if anybody's dissenting, that'll save us a roll call vote.
Yes, yes. I was actually coming on to do the administration. So as I say, I was just picking off each item as we went through. I know I did have a representation around the calendar of the meetings attached, which I think we were going to sort of say would be a representative calendar of meetings and not one that we would impose on the new town council. Councillor Thomas, did you want to say anything about the calendar?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I'm not quite sure why we need to have an indicative calendar, because I imagine the people who are going to join the new town council will appreciate they need to have a calendar. But if we are going to have a calendar, I mean, I'm not sure how happy I am with the one that's being offered. I mean, for a start, I've been looking around what town councils do, and it seems to be the norm for town councils to have a meeting a full council meeting at least once a month, and some do it twice a month. So I think bi-monthly would be setting, if you like, almost the wrong example to the new town council. Then there's the question of whether or not the town council should have its own planning committee. Now, I'm in favour of that, but many town councils don't have. It's not obligatory, and the new town council may not want that, or it may want a completely and very innovative structure such as the one they've got in Frome. So I've got some questions about whether we need one in the first place, but if we do need one, I rather feel that it should allow for more meetings, particularly full council meetings, than our indicative one does, especially as the new town council is going to have a unique job, the job of deciding what the town council does. And that's going to take an awful lot of discussion. And so I would have thought at an initial stage, you might want to set more meetings and then later on establish a regular pattern of less frequent ones. So it's just a thought again, as last time, on this subject.
Okay. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring Linda in next, and then I've got Councillor Barnes and Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chairman. You'll notice that this is a draft calendar, just to give some idea as to what should happen. One of the other documents I'm working on is a committee structure or a council structure, which actually would give other meetings which would fit in to the council meetings. What I didn't want to do is to have meetings every 4 weeks and put people off becoming councillors, because I know a lot of people will say at the beginning, well, how much do I have to commit to this? If I've got to come to a meeting every single month or twice a month or whatever, then a lot of people will actually be put off. It's quite common for larger town councils to meet bi-monthly. Committees meet more regularly, and let's face it, that's where most of the work gets done on a parish town council. And the shortest meeting of the cycle is usually the council meeting, because the committees have normally delegated powers and the delegated budget to get on and do things. And of course, the officer usually has delegated powers to deal with the day-to-day administration of the council. So it was just as a courtesy, I thought I would include it in your papers so that you could see some of the things that I've been working on since I started getting involved in this. It's certainly not set in stone. It will be for the new council to decide how often it wants to have its meetings and which committees, if any, it wishes to set up. But I need to put those things out there so that people can actually see what their alternatives are.
Okay. I understand that. Right. Councillor Barnes.
I understand what Linda is doing. I happen to think that at least at the outset, more frequent council meetings may be necessary. I think as you get your committees established and people begin to work, unlike small parish councils, I think committees will do most of the work. The one I think is absolutely essential, if you look at your planning reports that come out, is getting planning off the agenda into a committee as fast as possible, because you just have too many applications. You would find the whole meeting was bogged down discussing planning. So that one, I think Linda's absolutely right. You should get that one established almost immediately. And therefore, I mean, it's an agenda that runs up to June. You're not really precluding major changes after that. But I think, frankly, at an early meeting, you don't want to be discussing calendar dates. You really want to be discussing how you get committees established and things like that. So I think we're very sensible to set the timetable at the start. And really, Friday the 3rd of June is just around the corner from the council starting.
Okay. Councillor Gray.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about training. Is there any provision for training for the new councillors? I remember when we were first appointed, we were given a programme, I think actually when we were elected on the election day, of a very intensive, very helpful training programme. But I can't see any mention of training here for the new councillors.
Okay. Linda, you can.
Yes, one of the things that I was discussing with Malcolm the other day was trying to sort out a date immediately after the 10th of June when I could set up an induction day, 3 hours, whatever. But of course, because of COVID, it's very difficult actually putting something in place at this time. But I certainly have got an induction timetable, which I've done before with previous councils, and it is my intention, if at all possible, to do it face to face, but if necessary then it will have to be done remotely, I guess, because there are so many things that need to be gone through for new councillors, because with respect to all of you who are district councillors, being a parish councillor is somewhat different. I mean, just looking at today's agenda, for example, the next item is any other business. Well, those of you that are on a parish council will know that it is an illegal topic to have on a parish council agenda. You can never, ever have any other business. It's against the law. You can only make decisions and discuss things that are specified on an agenda. So lots of things will change. For people that are dual-hatted, I think it could be quite a shock to some people, but we'll get there. And I do really want to do a formal induction event for all the new councillors.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've clarified that now, that this timetable is really to sort of secure those initial meetings in that first sort of month after the election, and doesn't commit the council going forward after June. So this is how, these are how you're going to sort of do your cycle of meetings. Councillor Thomas, you want to come back?
Just very quickly, I take Councillor Barnes' point about planning. I think he's absolutely right. But I also take the other point he made, where he said that initially there may need rather more meetings. So I think it could be just, again, tweak it a little bit, just so we have a monthly meeting at the beginning of the council's existence. I don't know how other members of the committee would feel about that. I think it's far more realistic. Just very quickly, on this business about people being put off, I think exactly the opposite. People are clamouring, I think, to be on the new town council. There's a great deal of enthusiasm for the council. I don't think there's any great risk of people being put off.
Okay. Right. Okay. So I think we've exhausted all the discussion, and we've been now through all the items on the on that particular agenda item. If I can sort of sum it up, I think we're happy with the insurance. On the website, we propose setting up, or we propose doing some work to purchase the domain name, put up a sort of a simple holding website with various different information, and maybe Linda's contact details if anybody wants those. On the administration side, I think we're happy with the proposal around the independent internal audit service proposals, and the calendar of meetings. I think we just need to sort of make sure that that is, really clearly labelled up as this is what's going to happen in the first month, and after that it will be a decision for the council to take forward. Now, do I have any sort of dissent to that? As because of course this committee or this steering group advises Malcolm and Linda. We don't actually make any decisions. So is any dissent on that at all? No. Right. Okay. So there's no need for us to go through a roll call vote. Which brings us on to item 7, which is any other business. Councillor Barnes.
Yes, I think the one thing which, even prior to training, one needs to get across to the new councillors is, and Linda's already drawn attention to one of the strange things about parish councils, which is if you're going to take a decision, you've got to give notice of it on the agenda, which is why you have any other business. You can only discuss what is on the agenda. But the other one, which I think people will find quite strange, is you are a body corporate. Only the clerk or those specifically delegated to speak for the parish council can do so. Because I think individual parish councillors somehow think they can speak up as if they're speaking for the parish council. Not true unless you're specifically authorised to do so. Quite difficult to get that into your mindset if you've been the other type of councillor before.
Okay. Malcolm, you wanted to say something. You're muted. Ooh.
It's going to cost me a fortune by the time this is over. But a couple of points. I mean, in general, we only put any other business on in effect steering groups, and we're bound by much the same rules for that because this is a steering group, we can get away with it. I just wanted to highlight with members that, and it's something that's on Linda's calendar, but on the 7th of May, the legislation that allows remote meetings ceases, and after that date, we can no longer legally hold remote meetings. That is going to cause a problem, not only for the Bexhill Town Council, but also for us, because we simply can't get sufficient people in, bearing in mind we need to allow public access into the council chamber, maintaining the current level of COVID restrictions. So that's the one caveat. So something needs to change between now and the 7th of May, which is either a lifting of COVID restrictions or an ability to continue with remote meetings. So there's a practical issue which we've started the discussion on. I don't have an answer to it at this point in time because obviously some of it is in the hands of government on legislation, but we'll probably need to be finding an answer fairly soon so that we can we can look at the practicalities of this. But it's an issue for us, it's an issue for all local authorities post 7th of May.
Okay. Any other business? I don't think we are due to meet again. Is that correct, Malcolm?
No, I think that basically after today, Chairman, that concludes the business of this committee. And just can I say thank you very much to all the members who have worked hard and diligently and for their input, and to you, Chair, for leading the process. Thank you very much.
Yes, I would like to echo that. I would like to thank every member of the steering group. I think apart from one or two of the early votes, we've always been unanimous in our discussions, and it's great to work with councillors who want to make this happen and want to make it a success, which is the most important thing.
Can we thank Malcolm and Linda for their hard work too?
Yes.
Yes. Getting Lisa, can I say, just who's put a lot of effort into it as well. So
yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to all the officers, and thank you to the chairman. And well, this is a historic moment. So if there's no other items on the agenda, I call the meeting closed. Thank you.